Hi, this is Garibay, and today I am going to be talking about not talking to your players in Dungeons and Dragons games. Okay, so we have reached the blessed day where there are many, where Dungeons and Dragons is deeply discussed by an entire cottage industry of online video Dungeons and Dragons commentators. We have some amazing commentators, we have some mediocre commentators, and we have some poor commentators as well. But almost across the board, these commentators do the same thing, which is often when they get a question, a legitimate question from the internet, and somebody says, here's a good example. Mary writes into her local YouTube channel and says, hey, D&D commentator group, I have this problem. Sally's at my table and she Leroy Jenkins 1/3 of the time. So my group does 10-20 minutes of planning, but about 15 minutes in, she just goes, that's it, I'm picking up my sword, I'm running in and I'm attacking them. And all the rest of the party's just stuck there with their plan around their ankles, and it's terrible, right? And so here's how this goes, right? Vast majority of Dungeons & Dragons online video commentators say, Mary, did you talk to Sally? You really need to talk to your player. Maybe something's going on with Sally. Maybe there's a reason that she Leroy Jenkins every time. But open communication with your players will really help. Well, I'm here to say I'm standing up for people who don't ask questions to other people frequently, and people who don't talk to other people like a dime store psychologist, all right? I do not handle problems at my table with heart-to-heart talks. And for a long time I've been ashamed of this. But now I'm holding up the banner for not having these precious moment talks, okay? And I'm gonna back up with what I'm saying with evidence, right? or reasons why you should go down my road, okay? Deal with problems at the table, right? Now here's why, okay? Here's why. When Mary asked her question, she knew that she could talk to her player. That information's been out there for it's on a million different blogs, and it was old when it was in blog form. It's really old now that it's in video form, okay? All right. Mary didn't talk to Sally because she's against open communication. She didn't talk to her because these precious moment talks that every, D&D commentator out there is now touting are not effective, right? The vast majority of reason why Dungeon Masters don't talk to their players about problems at the table is they already know the answer. Okay, so let's see what that talk would have been like. Okay, so if Mary follows the Dungeons and Dragons commentators' advice, here's what it would look like. Okay, it would look like the following. Mary would go, Mary, hey. In last night's session, you Leroy Jenkins twice out of 3 combats. You made everybody embarrassed, and you wasted their time. Well, why did you do that? Why did you do that, Sally? Right? Is anything wrong? And Sally, the reason why Sally does this is Sally is a selfish jerk, right? So once Mary had talked to her, here's what she would do. She's not going to say, well, Mary, the reason I did a Leroy Jenkins twice in your game is I'm a selfish jerk. But now that you've dime store psychologied me for 2 minutes, I realize that now, and I'm going to be a kind and thoughtful human going forward. It's not going to work like that. Sally is a jerk, and that conversation is never going to end with Sally saying, I'm a selfish jerk. Also, she's not going to be reflective and go, you know what, Mary, I am a selfish jerk right now, but my life is on a fulcrum. And maybe one of the people in my life, one of the items in my life, or one of the events that are going to occur in my life soon will tip that fulcrum, and I'll become a kind and thoughtful human, right? That conversation is never going to happen, right? So the Dungeon Master is right to not have a precious moments talk with the player, okay? And so just standard statement to all the Dungeons & Dragons commentators out there. If you want to give your talk to your players thing, just put a stamp on it. Like, I wish you could just stamp the screen going, boop, here's your stamp, talk to the player, okay? We all know that you agree, that you think that's a solution. And I think for maybe 1 out of 100 people it is. Maybe 1 out of 50, right? But the real world works on, dungeon masters who know the problem that's at their table, and no conversation is going to fix that, because you can't have a conversation. Mary can't say to Sally, "You're a selfish jerk, Sally." You need to stop it, right? It's an issue that's got to be handled at the table, right? Now, there's some things that go on with dealing with issues at the table. So I'm going to take some of the most common questions that I've seen asked of multiple online Dungeons & Dragons commentators, and I'm going to deal with them in the table solution way, okay? In order to do that, I'm going to have to break out my old memory palace trick. So we're going to talk about Leroy Jenkins holding scales and a ruler, okay? And Leroy, holding those two items, is standing across from a growling wolf who has a gigantic hog, like a pig, what bacon comes from, gummed to his back, stuck to that wolf's back with gum. All right, so let's get into it. Here's how to handle the most common issues without having the precious moments talking to your player thing, okay? All right, Leroy Jenkins, all right? If someone Leroy Jenkins in your game, come down on them with the wrath of God. Do not ever allow Leroy Jenkins in your game. Shut that nonsense down. Somebody Leroy Jenkins, okay, that is a poor plan, right? So what you need to do is bring all the force you can, okay? So if you didn't have an ancient red dragon behind that group of orcs, you do now, and he is going to eat that character, right? Now that character might die, right? And all the other characters who are 100 feet back or 50 feet back, right? They go, oh my gosh, that's an ancient red dragon, and he just ate Sally, right? And they're gonna go, oh my goodness, maybe we should run, right? And Sally's gonna be looking down at her character saying, oh man, maybe it wasn't a good idea to throw away all the planning and just Leroy Jenkins. And then Sally has a choice, right? And this is great. This will give you real results, right? So Sally can say, oh, snap, I better stop that nonsense, okay? Or she can go, I can't believe you killed my character. That's it, I quit. Either way, you have a better game right then and there, right? And at minimum, maybe Sally does go, oh, maybe there's just a moment in her heart where you having a red dragon eat her because she Leroy Jenkins, where she goes, maybe I'm a selfish human being. And this is the event in my life that tips the fulcrum and shows me I need to be a kind, thoughtful human being, right? And the other thing is, having a character eaten at your table by a red dragon is an awesome solution. It's going to be fun for everybody involved except Sally, right? Okay? It's good. It's solid. It's a plan, right? All right. Okay. So that's Leroy Jenkins, all right? And my condolences to Sally. All right. Rules lawyer, right? All right. So Mary has another player in her group, Stephanie, the rules lawyer. So Stephanie, so Sally says, okay, roll against the gelatinous cube, right? And at that point, the person, another player takes an action, and immediately Stephanie goes, well, you know what? You did the rules wrong on that. They should get a bonus action right here, okay? And that bonus action, it's not even optional. It happens automatically. So that other player character is going to get a bonus action now, okay? Shut that stuff down, right? So you're going to say, one, Stephanie, I appreciate your attention to the game, but that is another person's character, and you can play your player character, and they're going to play their player character. Also, if you have a rules concern, wait until the end of this encounter, and I will be happy to hear your rules concern. Or, ideally, if you could tell me after the game, that would be a great way to handle it too. But I do appreciate your attention. But you handle it right there at the table. Shut that nonsense down, okay? All right, that's rules lawyer. So we got Leroy Jenkins, we got rules lawyering, and then yes. So the scales, okay? What if somebody is displaying prejudice in your game, okay? And they say, oh, you know what? My human character really hates half orcs, and I'm just going to slaughter this half orc because I saw him in the street. right? You could say, well, you know what? I understand what you're saying for your player character, but we don't play that here, right? You are displaying prejudice, right? And that is not appropriate in this game. So choose another action for your player character. Okay. And that person says, no, I'm doing the same thing. Now, players always have control of their player character, okay? And the other issue is, so you allow them to take that action once you've warned against it once, right? If it's super egregious, you may just take them out of the game immediately, okay? But if it's like the half-orc one, you let them, take care of that, and then as soon as possible, Red Dragon comes in and eats that person. And, and you keep doing this until they get the idea that this is not going to be an option, okay? And you only do this once you have given adequate warning that this is not appropriate, okay? And again, one of the things that does go along with what I'm saying is you need to be ready for your table to lose players, right? And then you're going to need to go out and recruit new ones, right? But the reality is many of the problems that you're going to deal with are deep-seated problems that are at the core of those people. And your Precious Moments talk is not going to solve it. So deal with it at the table, okay? Now, you should have frank discussions in front of the entire table with players, right? And explain to them what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And don't do it in a session 0, okay? Like, again, most of these problems has nothing to do with D&D. It has to do with human failings in different people, right? And when this happens, you need to address it at the table, right? And ancient red dragons will eat any character, right? And honestly, it's just a solution that you're going to need to use, okay? And I honestly believe this is better than having your Precious Moments talk, because those Precious Moments talks just really are not what they're being advertised to be, right? They are for reasonable people on both sides, right? But the reality is, if you're having to talk to a player, almost always it's because they're not a super reasonable person, okay? All right. Let's talk about the wolf, all right? So you have a lone wolf character. You got a guy comes in, all right, Mary's table. Julia says, oh, check it out. I got this, I have a half-elf fighter charlatan who's a lone wolf. Walks all by herself. Wears all black. Super cool. Her sword is black. The scabbard is black. Awesome, right? And, and by the way, she doesn't like any of your other player characters. She doesn't like any of these other nonsense player characters. And when we're done with this adventure, she's going to walk off coolly alone. Maybe I'll see you at the next adventure, right? The way you handle that is marry for Julia in your next session. If she's still there, you have a lone wolf character meet Julia's character in game, and have a sword that's more black than her sword, and a cape that's more black than her cape, right? That's more lone wolf than her lone wolf, right? But in the game, there's a tender moments, precious moment talk, where the new lone wolf NPC talks to the lone wolf NPC and goes, you know what? I see those 4 other player characters you're with. I saw the way they got your stew last night when around the campfire. I saw the way the other character got up a half an hour early because they saw you were tired on guard duty. Man, I wish I had friends like you, but I don't. And I'm going to walk off alone, cool in the rain. I wish I was as lone wolf. I wish that I had friends like you. But sadly, I'm just a pathetic lone wolf. And then they walk off, okay? And that in character, you have a super cool character, right? Who is just there for a little while and tells Julia that her lone wolf character is blessed to have the player character friends that she has. Much better way than a Precious Moments talk with your player, okay? All right. That wolf is gummed to a hog, right? Attention hog. What do you do with the attention hog, right? So if you have somebody who every time there's a role-playing scene, they want to get into it, they're going to spend 10 minutes talking with the librarian of the town, which is great. That's awesome. But it's not cool when then they also have a 10-minute talk with the barmaid, and then when they have a 10-minute talk with the blacksmith about the new sword they're building. You know what I mean? And just each scene, you have a player who's really thinking, okay, I'm going to get my, what I want to do in here, but I don't really care if any of the player characters have that much to do. Okay? What I would do here is break out narrative priority. Narrative priority is a concept that has been brought forward in John Harper's Blades in the Dark, right? So when you go into, the blacksmith, when that player goes, they've had 2 scenes, 10 minutes with the librarian at the town library, 10 minutes with the barmaid at the local tavern, and then you go to the blacksmith. Have your player characters shift the attention to other characters. So, what I would do is, that player character goes in and they start their long talk about, oh, well, this is the sword of my grandfather, and I want you to, hone the edge so it's super sharp. But I'm also going to now tell you the story of my grandfather and who held this ancient heritage sword, right? Well, you say, oh, you know what? The blacksmith starts to listen to your story, but then he sees the dagger of the player character behind you, and he goes, oh my goodness, is that from Silver Hollow? That's the dagger of Silver Hollow. And then the blacksmith interrupts the attention hog player with a 10-minute discourse on the history of the silver horn, the silver horn dagger, which is now a magic item that you give to a player character who has not been able to talk the whole game because your attention hog has been dealing with it, right? No precious moment talk. One of the players gets a benefit and the other player gets shut down for a little while, which they needed to get shut down, okay? And maybe they pick up on the tip. Hey, we'll see. All right, last one, okay? So that wolf has a hog stuck on his back with a big old glob of gum, okay? And that gum represents the glommer, okay? Let's talk about the glommer. All right, so Mary's got Julia, and she's got Stephanie, and she's got Sally in there. Well, of course, Sally's upset because she was eaten by a red dragon. All right, but in addition to that, there's also Sarah, okay? Now, Sarah has a new boyfriend, and she's brought her new boyfriend this week to play Dungeons and Dragons, okay? And, and actually, she's brought him like 3 sessions now, right? And all that Barry, Sarah's boyfriend, does is play on his phone and make jokes and then kiss Sarah every now and then, which the PDA makes everybody at the table awkward. He's a glommer. He's at the table not because he wants to play Dungeons and Dragons, but because he really wants to spend time with Sarah, okay? Now, the way you deal with a glommer is you make them the absolute pure center of the game. And you know what? It is discovered that Barry's character is actually the unbeknownst to him, he is the bastard son of the king, right? And now the entire group has to decide, does he take the throne? Does he lead the entire group in being, in taking his seat upon the throne? And the entire campaign now shifts to putting Barry upon the throne? I don't know. It's a good question, right? What do you say, Barry? Right? Well, one at minimum, you're going to get Barry's attention, right? And then at that point, if Barry engages, right, then you actually bring him in and you do everything you can. You say, oh, okay, well, I see that you're invested in this fight. I know you've been rolling 2d4 for your sword for the last three sessions, but it's actually 2d6, right, or whatever it is, right? And so you help Barry, and you bring him in, and you get him more engaged and more connected in Dungeons and Dragons, right? And if it doesn't work and he doesn't respond, well, you always have that red dragon who can eat Barry, okay? And so you never have a conversation saying, hey, Sarah, Barry really isn't here for the game. He's just here to be close to you, and he's a glommer, and he's horrible. Because that's not going to end with Sarah going, oh, you're right. Barry isn't here to play Dungeons and Dragons. He's just here to be close to me. That's going to end with her going, what? Barry, my new love? We're getting married in a month, right? It's just going to be very defensive, and that talk is not going to go well. So one, I want to thank everybody for hearing this new approach to dealing with your player problems, okay? And I really want to encourage all D&D Dungeons & Dragons commentators out there, just talk to your players on a stamp the screen every time it comes up, and then give them a real solution they'll actually use at the table. Because precious moment talking to your players is lame. Thank you very much. Take care, everybody.